Begin today the Gemara on Daf Lamed Tes Amud Beis, the last line. Omar Rove, Omar Rav Nachman, Macho b'fnei shnayim. When you're coming to protest against someone that is occupying your property, and after 3 years you could establish a chazakah, so you have to be moiche. So we learned before in the Gemara discussion about this. When you're not being moiche in front of him, does it have to be in front of 2 edim, or does it have to be in front of 3? So Rava says that Rav Nachman held that it has to be just in front of 2. That's good enough. Okay, now the Gemara will continue with other halachas that Rava said in the name of Rav Nachman. The ein sarach leima ksuvu. Regarding this macha, when the 2 edim hear from this person that is protesting about this, and they want to write it down, that it should be documented in a shtar that he protested about this, and they're going to sign their names. Now you'll have a shtar to prove your macha that it happened. They don't have to get permission from the one that made this macha to write this. And the reason is because why should they need his permission? It's something that's for his benefit. He's going to have a record of the fact that 2 edim heard that he was meicha against someone that's using this property. So anything that's a schus for someone, you don't need his permission to do it for him. So they can write it without asking him. Now another halacha, when a person wants to give a notification. What's the concept of a meidah, notification? This is a person that someone is forcing him to sell something or to give something against his will, and he has to go and do this, but he gives a notification to aid him in advance that whatever I'm going to sell or give afterwards, it's all bottle. It's not, I don't want to do it. And when he gives that notice in advance, then that sale or that gift will not be anything. So now this meidah also has to be in front of 2 edim, and and if they want to document this and sign it, that there should be a clear record that he made this meidah, he doesn't have to tell them to write this, because it's all for his benefit. It's a schus for him. And really, these 2 points, the Gemara Rava could have said it in the name of Rav Nachman together, but the Rashbami says that he heard it from Rav Nachman separately, so he says it separately. A third case, haidah, if a person is meidah. Person comes, let's say a person that admits that he borrowed money from someone in front of edim, b'fnei shnayim. So he admits in front of 2 edim that he owes money. But now if they want to document this, that he admitted to this, it's only if he allows them and tells them to write this, then they can write it down and it can be used as a document to prove this. Because in this case, if they write this down, it's something which is a choy for him. It's something that's going to cause him a loss of money. Anytime a person borrowed money and there's no documentation for this, which is what's called a milval peh, if he then wants to come and claim that he paid it, he can claim that he paid. But once you have a documentation that he was meideh, that he borrowed the money, now he won't be able to claim that he paid it. So in such a case, they're going to have to get his permission to write it down. That's the halacha b'chlal with a shtar. If you write a shtar and you don't have permission from the one that you're writing the shtar for him, against him, to write that shtar, the shtar has no koyach b'chlal.
It's either edim or a shtar.
Okay, but the edim will still be a milval peh. By a milval peh, you're still able to say paraiti, but not with a shtar. With a shtar, you can't say paraiti.
How do you know the shtar that he wanted this right without his?
By every single, so the edim are not allowed to sign. They're not allowed. If you see that edim signed the shtar, so then you could know that they probably got permission from him, because otherwise they're not allowed to sign the shtar.
I'm not sure if it's true. Why does he have to say ksuvu?
It takes away a certain option of him to be able to tie the paraiti later, right? So it is true, yeah, but nevertheless, to be able to later claim that he paid it, once it's documented as a shtar, you're not able to tie in the paraiti. So there's a big difference between a loan with a shtar and a loan, a milval peh without a shtar. So therefore, you have to get permission from the borrower to write it down in a shtar. Kinyan, if you're selling something, and as we'll see from the continuation of the Gemara, we're talking over here about a kinyan sudder, that you're selling something with a handkerchief, where the buyer gives a handkerchief to the seller and he picks up the handkerchief, and this is the kinyan sudder or kinyan chalipin, where the kinyan takes effect right away. B'fnei shnayim, you have 2 edim that are there to witness that this is a kinyan that took place. And if they want to then document and write down that this kinyan took place, he doesn't have to tell them, give them permission to write this down in a shtar. Now here this needs an explanation. The Gemara will focus on this, because in this case, it is something which is a choy for him, that now this shtar will be used to say that he sold this, and you're taking away something from him. So seemingly you should need permission for this, but still you don't have to give permission for this. Okay, the Gemara will focus on this soon. The key in shtaris, when you're coming to verify a shtar, to verify the signatures of a shtar. Anytime you have a shtar which has two signatures in it, so then if later on the shtar wants to be used, and let's say it's a borrower, a lender, and the lender is going to come and say, this shtar is a forgery, prove to me that these witnesses are real signatures, so you're going to have the eidim themselves to come and verify the signatures. So in order not to have to go and find those eidim, if it's years later, so you could be Mekayim the shtar, you go to the Bezdin, and you have the Bezdin that write in the shtar that we were Mekayim the shtar, there's a whole nusach that you write in it, this is what's called a hempik, and then you have to have a Bezdin that signs it. It's not enough to have two people. If you have two people, so then it's just two eidim, and another two eidim that sign that these are so it doesn't add anything. But if it's a Bezdin that signs it, that verifies the shtar. Okay, these are the halachas that Rave said in the name of Rav Nachman, and the Gemara gives a simon for these halachas, simon mamhak, which is the four halachas here, Maidah, and first Macha, Maidah, and then Haidah, and Kinyan. So Amar Rave said about this, I kashili, if I have any question on what Rav Nachman said, ha kashili. My question is on this halacha. Hi Kinyan. The halacha of the Kinyan that it says here, so it said two things. It said that it's done in front of two people, two eidim, and you don't have to have permission from the seller to document this, and the eidim sign it in a shtar. So hey chidami, what's the story here with this Kinyan? If you're going to say that this is not just simply a kinyan, but this is a maisa bezdin, meaning that it's the bezdin that's seeing this transfer of the ownership of an object from one person to another. And if it's a maisa bezdin, the reason why the Gemara is suggesting to say that this is an inyan of a maisa bezdin, because that would explain why the eidim can go and write it down without getting the permission of the seller. Because even though it's a chayv for him, it's something that he loses by this, but any Maisa Bezdin, the Bezdin has the right to write anything down, to document anything that they see happening, whether it's a schos or a chayv. There's a koyach of hefker Bezdin hefker. So if you would say that it's a Maisa Bezdin going on here, so then it's understood what it says, that you don't need his permission to document this. But though, if that's the case, though, the question is, libayit lasa. So then you should need three people for this transfer of ownership, and then it could be documented without his permission. And like a Maisa Bezdin dummy, if this is not a Maisa Bezdin, it's just a private person that's selling something to someone else, and therefore it's just a edus that you have two people that are here to testify about what happened. So that so then why do you not need his permission to then document this in a shtar? If it's something which is a chay for him, you can't document anything without the permission of the person that it's a chay for him. That was the question Rava had. But Basa the Bayi, after he had his shaila, Hoda Pashta, he himself answered it. La'olam lav kamaisa bezdin dami. Really, the sale is not an act of a bezdin that you're transferring ownership. It's just a sale between two people, and it's eidim that are here to witness what's going on. The reason why the eidim that witness this do not have to have the permission of the seller to document it, mishum the stam kinyan l'ksiva imid. A kinyan are like this, and when it says here in the Gemara stam kinyan, the Rashbam clarifies that it's talking about the kinyan of chalipin, which is a kinyan that is made to take effect immediately. There's nothing else you have to do afterwards. So it's a kinyan that he wants it to be done right away, and it's made to write down right away, and there's no questions that have to be asked about this. But from the Rashbam, it's understood that a different kind of kinyan, if you have a kinyan like Meshiche or any other kind of kinyan, that you still have to do something else as an action that has to be done for the kinyan to take effect. It's not a kinyan like Chalipin that's chal right away, so then that lav dafki you can write without his permission. Here, this is a kinyan of Sudr, so that you can write down right away. Okay, now regarding another detail that was mentioned here, Maidah. The Gemara is going to speak about the scene of Maidah, that you can give a notification regarding a sale or a gift that you're giving someone, that you really don't want to do this, you're being forced. So Rabbi and Rav Yosef Damri Tarvayu, Rabbi and Rav Yosef both said, Loikes vina Maidah, you can't write a notification which will then nullify the whole sale or the gift, Ella Mandle Tzayis Dina, only regarding somebody that doesn't listen to Bezdin. So because this is an individual that doesn't listen to Bezdin, so you had no choice. You have to write this Maidah in order to be mevatel this sale. But if it's somebody that you can just simply take to Bezdin, you can't write a notification. Take him to Bezdin. Take him to Bezdin, and you'll stop the sale if he's trying to force you to sell something. The fact that you're not taking him to Bezdin proves that you're really agreeing to sell. And the whole notification that you write is not going to be effective. But Abai and Rava both said, no, afila alai v'alecha. Even people like myself and you, that we obviously listen to Bezdin, but nevertheless, there are situations where if you write this notification, it will take effect. And if it's in a case, not always is there a Bezdin available. Maybe they're in a time or in a place where there's no Bezdin available, and there's someone that is forcing you, pressuring you into selling something or giving him something, and you don't want to do it, and you're being pressured to do it, and then you can write a notification and to stop the sale or to stop the gift. It could be a situation where there's no Bezdin available. Amri Nerdoi, in Nerdoi, they said another halacha regarding this din of the notification. Kol Meidah, anytime that you're giving a notification about a gift or a sale or something that you're going to do, and you want to notify that it's really null and void, you're not interested in it. And then the Eidim are going to document this. And they didn't write into the document the following, that we know exactly what it is, what was the einus that he was being pressured or forced to do it. In other words, the Eidim didn't just hear from him that I'm being forced, but they know specifically exactly what the einus is. So then lav meidahi. It's not considered to be a proper notification to nullify the sale. It has to be something that the Eidim that are writing this know clearly what that einus is. If they don't know clearly what the einus is, then it's not trusted. Could be the person that's not writing the notification that he's being forced, but he's really not being forced, and it's not accepted. So the Gemara wants to understand, Meidah demai. What kind of Meidah, a notification that he's writing about what? What is this person doing that he's writing a notification to be mevatel this? If it's a case where there's a person that's giving a get for his wife, or a person that is giving somebody a gift, and he wants to write a notification that he doesn't really want to give the get, he's just being forced to give the get, or he doesn't want to give the gift, he's being forced to give the gift. And it's in that case that we're saying that it has to be written clearly that the Eidim know exactly, they can verify, they know what the einus is. But the question is, why do they have to know? Gilui milsa ba'al mehi. This is something which is clear to everybody to know. In other words, in such a case, it's obvious, it's clear that there's no games to be played over here, that this person is being forced to do this. Otherwise, why would this be happening? On one hand, you see that he's writing the get and he's giving the get, he's giving this gift, and at the same time, he's telling Eidim that I'm being mevatel, I don't want. Why is this happening? Obviously, because on one hand, he's being pressured to do this, and on the other hand, he doesn't want to, so he writes in advance on Meidah that later he can go and be mevatlet. So it's clear. There's nothing to be worried about over here. Why do they have to know exactly what the einus was? The is vini elamai. You're going to say that this is not a case of stama matona, but this is a sale, that he's being forced into maybe selling something. That's what we're talking about. And over here, it's necessary for the Eidim to know exactly what it is that the einus is. And the Rashbam explains that because over here we are concerned that when he's writing this Meidah, it's not really true. Why not? Because by a sale, it's very possible that this person was pressured for cash. So he figures to himself, I have a very easy way to getting cash. I'm going to go and tell someone that I'm selling you this property, and he's going to get the money that he needs. And then he's going to write later on, he's going to write actually in advance that a Meidah, that I didn't really mean to sell this to you. And then later on, when he doesn't need the money anymore, he's going to take out this Meidah and show the Bezdin and say, oh, the whole sale is null and void. And he'll give him back the money. So while he's writing this Meidah, which seems to be sincere that he's being forced into selling this, but really it's all his game in order for him to have money for this time period that he needs the money. So it's in this case that you would say that it's necessary for the Eidim to verify, to know what exactly is the einus here. What does it mean you're being pressured? What exactly happened? But the question is, Rava himself said, when it comes to a sale, there's no such a thing of writing a Meidah, a notification in advance to be mevatel a sale. And the reason is that Rashbam here says, when it comes to a sale, so you have here later in this Pedic that there are some cases where the halacha is, Talyu v'zav zvini. Even when you're being pressured into selling something against your will, it doesn't matter. Once you sell it, the sale takes effect. That's the halacha. There are some cases where also not, as we'll see later here in the Pedic. So therefore, Rava says, if in cases where the sale cannot take effect, so then you shouldn't sell it at all. There's no reason for you to sell it. If in certain cases where the sale takes effect anyway, so your Meidah is not going to help. You're going to write a Meidah in advance that I was forced to sell. It doesn't matter. Even if you were forced to sell, the sale still takes effect. So then what's the point of writing this Meidah? So the Gemara answers, La'olam disvini. The truth is that the case that you have to, where Rava said that you have to write clearly what exactly the oinus is for the Eidim to know, to be able to verify what it is that he was being pressured into doing. It is in the case of a sale. But even though we just said that in a case of a sale you don't write a Meidah because anyways the sale will take effect, but there is a case where Rava is Maida, Heiche the Onis or Kamaisa the Pardesa, where there was a Onis, like the story of a Pardesa with the following story of an orchard. In this kind of case, Rava will agree that you sell, you're being forced to sell, but yet you could write a Meidah in advance that you don't want to sell. What's the story? There was this person, the Mashkin Pardesa Lechavre Letlas Shnin. He's a borrower and he didn't have what to pay, so he gave the lender an orchard to use as a mashkin to get the payment of the loan for 3 years. After this lender used this property for 3 years, which could establish a chazaka to prove that it's his, so now Amalei, the lender that's occupying this field for 3 years, comes and says to the borrower, and he blackmails him, if you're going to sell it to me now, then good, I'll pay you for it. But Viloi, if you're not ready to sell it to me, Kavishna l'shtara mashkanta, I'm going to hide the shtar that says that it was only a mashkin, v'amine l'kuchi biyadi, and I'm going to then just claim that I bought it. And I have a chazaki, I'm here ready for 3 years, and I can easily do this. So kahai gavne, in such a kind of case, kasvinan meidah. You have to write, you could write a Meidah, even according to Rava. You're being pressured into doing this, so you could write a Meidah in advance to stop this person from forcing you to sell this property. And in such a case, the Eidim have to know clearly exactly that this is the story that happened. So they should understand that this is a real Meidah. It's not just a person that's making a sale, as I mentioned before, just to get cash and then later to give it back. This is the kind of case. The Rashbam over here explains by Riches from Rabbeinu Chananel exactly how you get the Eidim to know the story that happened, and therefore the Eidim will realize that this is not a real sale. If a person gives a person a matana, but he's giving it to him in hiding, it's like a secretive thing, he's giving him a matana. And says, hey, I'm writing you a shtar that I'm giving you a matana, but it's all in secret. Loi magbinan ba. You don't collect, that matana is worthless. The recipient does not get it. What is a matana in hiding? Rav Yosef said, the amalu l'sadi, he told the Eidim, zilu atmuru v'ksuvile. He tells the Eidim clearly, go and hiding and write a shtar that I'm giving a matana to so-and-so. So if you told him clearly to hide, that means that he's afraid of something. He doesn't mean it seriously. Others say, Rav Yosef, that Rav Yosef said even furthermore. If he doesn't tell the Eidim that he's telling to write a shtar matana for someone, clearly go out in the street, go out in the public and write it openly and clearly for everybody to see and know that I'm giving this matana to this person, then it's considered to be a matana in hiding. He has to tell them clearly. What's the difference between these two versions of what Rav Yosef said? The difference is stama. In a case where he just tells people, Eidim to write a shtar matana for someone and he didn't specify anything. So according to the first version, it's going to be a good matana because you didn't tell them clearly go and hide. But according to the second version, as long as he doesn't clearly tell them that you should go and write it openly and clearly for everyone to see, so then it's not good enough. You tell them to write a matana, you should have made it clear that you want it to be a matana for everyone to know. Amar Rove said about this halacha that Rav Yosef said, "V'havye meidah lechaverta." This matana that this person writes, and he's writing it in hiding. So as we said, he doesn't really want to give it as a matana. So what is he really doing? Why is he telling Eidim to write this shtar matana for this person? What he's really doing is, it's a meidah. This is not going to be considered to be like a notice for a matana that he's going to give afterwards. If let's say that very same property that he's not writing as a matana to one person, and he wrote it in hiding, so it's not really a matana for him, but then later on, he's going to write it as a gift for someone else. The reason why he's writing in advance this matana in hiding for someone else, because that's now going to be considered to be a meidah, that the second person that he's giving this as a matana to is not going to be a matana, because he already wrote in advance that he's giving it to someone else. So it's going to come out that nobody's going to get it. The first person doesn't get it because he's to get matana in hiding. And the second person is not going to get it because he already wrote it before to someone else, and he's doing this just as a meidah, that it should be clear that he doesn't want to give it to the second person. So let's say you have somebody that you have. Let's say you have someone that you have two people that are pressuring him to sell them or to give them this land, and he wants to get them off his back. So he writes it to one in hiding, and then he writes it to the other one afterwards, and then none of them get it. Omar Rav Papa. So Rav Papa said about this halacha of Rava, had Rava la befeidish itmer. This that was said now in the name of Rava. Rava never said this explicitly. Ela meklali itmer. It was learned from a psak din that Rava said regarding the following story. Dahu Gavra, there was a person, the Azal Kdushi Yitza. He was going to be Mekadesh a woman. Amra lei, she says to him, Ikasvasli, kul nichse, if you're going to write away to me all of your possessions, havina la chletza. I'll be your wife. And viloi la havina loch. And if not, I'm not going to marry you. Okay, so then Azal, the person went, kasvela, or he wrote to her, actually, you go to say in the Gemara, Lemichtav, he was going to write to her, because he didn't write yet. He says he's planning to going and write to her all of his possessions to this woman that he wants to marry. Asa berei kashisha. So now the older son of this person comes to his father and tells him, Amalei va'hu gavre matevele. And this person, referring to himself, what's going to be with him? You're giving away all your money to this wife that you're marrying now. What I get nothing. So Amalu Lisadi, so this person said to Edim, Zilu Atmuru Be'evi Yamina, go hide in this place called Evi Yamina, and Ksuvele, and write that I'm giving my possessions as a gift to my oldest son. Okay, so now he writes to his oldest son in hiding that he's giving to him, and then later on he goes and writes that he's giving it to this woman that he wants to marry. Sorry. So also the Kamei de Rava. They came to ask Rava about this. Does anybody get this gift here? They're all of his possessions. Amalahu, and Rava said, Loi Markana, not the son got any gift from him, the Loi Markana, and not the wife that he wanted to marry also got anything from him. Nobody gets anything from him. So now what's the reason? Man Duchaza, one that saw the psak din of Rava, Savar thought the reason is, like we said before, that Rava said, that the first time he wrote to his son in hiding, so that's not a good gift because it's in hiding. But nevertheless, it counts as a notification that a gift that will follow afterwards for the wife will be bottled. So therefore none of them get anything. But the truth is, Veloihi, that's not the reason why Rava said this. Hasam, it's only in that case, there, it's very clear from the context of the story that he wants to marry this woman and she's pressuring him to give him all his possessions, that he didn't want to give it to her. And by the fact that he wrote it to the son first, usually when you write a matana first in hiding, it's not going to automatically become a midah. But in this case, when he did it, it's clear that he's doing this out of pressure, that he's not interested in giving all his possessions to this woman, it's just that he wants to marry her. But in any other stam case, where we don't see the context of the story that he's being pressured into anything, and he just writes a matana to one person in hiding, and then he writes to the other, I can say, Mar Nichale Delikni, the second person he wrote a matana for, and he wrote it openly, he wants to give it to him. And the first person he wrote a matana to in hiding, he wrote it in hiding because he doesn't want to give it. And I'm not going to consider the first person as a maidah to the second matana that he wanted to give. The Gemara asks in Ibaya, and this is really going back to what the Gemara brought before in the name of Rav Yosef regarding this matana and hiding. The Gemara brought two versions about this. Stama mai, in the case where it's stam, which is you didn't specify clearly that this matana should be in hiding, but you also didn't specify clearly that you should write the stam matana openly and clearly for everybody to see. It was just stam. So before we had two lashonos about this, now the Gemara asks this as in Ibaya. And the Gemara says, Ravina says, Loi chashina. Such a kind of matana, we're not chayshish for this. It's a perfect matana. You don't have to clearly say, go write it, go give it openly. It's a good matana. Ravashi says, chayshinon. We're going to be concerned, it's not clear, maybe because he didn't say clearly either way, it's a stam, so maybe this is considered to be like a matana in hiding, and therefore maybe it's not a good matana. The Rashba Amir says, the Gemara uses the lashon chayshinon, meaning that we're not going to say for sure that it's not a good matana, but we're chayshish. B'diavad, if the recipient of this gift will take it, we won't be able to take it away from him. but we're chayshish. And the hilchah say we pass like Rav Ashi chayshinan, that in such a case we're chayshish for such a kind of matana. So based on this Gemara that Rashban brings before, that's why when you write today a matana, any star matana or any star for a kinyan or for a get, you write that you mevatel all my dois and so on, because of a person has a possibility to always just make a maidah in advance. That's why in a proper star you have to write in that you're being mevatel all maidahs and all maidahs, a bittel of maidah, you're being mevatel anything that the star should be a good star.